Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, as the conflict between Israel and Hamas rages on, aid agencies have warned of an impending humanitarian crisis with food, water and fuel, as well as medical supplies running low in Gaza. Israel has hit parts of Gaza City with fresh airstrikes on Saturday, and that came exactly a week after Hamas launched a surprise attack on that country. Tel Aviv has urged Palestinians to flee that area before an expected ground offensive against Hamas commanders. Let's bring in Dr. Firoz Osman, I beg your pardon, from the Media Review Network, joining us now, as you can see there, via our video link. And as part of our discussion, we're also hoping to bring you sentiments, perspectives from a South African citizen living in Gaza, Professor Haidar Eid, who actually shared some of his experience with us via a few voice notes, essentially, because of the network connectivity issues. And we'll play those interspersely throughout our conversation. But for now, Dr. Firoz, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. You know, I suppose top of mind for many people in this country as we watch what is unfolding in the Middle East is the ANC's sentiments towards this. They've come out unequivocally in support of Palestine. Perhaps those who know the ANC's history will be unsurprised by this, but for people living in today's history, they're wondering whether it goes far enough.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, our history against apartheid is well known. We expect, and many people in Palestine really expect more from the South African government. They have done much. The statements by our President Cyril Ramaphosa was brilliant. I think, our Foreign Minister International Relations, Naledi Pandor, was exceptionally good this time, making it very clear and expressed a disappointment that the unions are not doing sufficiently in order to pressurize government. But the Palestinians in particular, given the same experience, maybe worse, not maybe worse, I mean, people like Bishop Tutu, who said that if you are neutral in cases of oppression, then you have sided with the oppressor. And those come from, veteran stalwarts of anti-apartheid strugglers in our country. So yes, we expect far more from South Africa and our government to do. It's merely rhetorical statements at the moment. The fact that our ambassador is here and there's no ambassador at that side is important, but I think even more must be. We have no choice. This is what we demanded when we were abroad in the struggle against apartheid, that there must be no relations with apartheid anywhere in the world. And we had the support of Europeans, of the African countries, the frontline states, who made great deal of sacrifices for our freedom. And we expect, and the Palestinians expect, that South Africa and our government cannot allow Zionist Israel apartheid regime, the supremacist entity that is here, and we have to shut down our embassies and kick up the Israeli ambassador from our country.
You speak about the experience of Palestinians. As I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, we've managed to reach one South African Palestinian who's currently living in Gaza, and we've asked him a number of questions. Among those, I was interested to find out how he is keeping safe with his family and how he's able to keep any kind of communication with the outside world in a context where we know that connectivity has been a major challenge. This is what Professor Eid had to say.
Actually, I'm trying to keep, myself and my family. I have two young daughters and my wife as well. It's been very, very difficult. I mean, the ongoing and unfolding genocide taking place right in Gaza is the worst since 1948. We were told, for example, we were contacted by Israeli intelligence officers about 4 nights ago, and we were told to leave the neighborhood. And so we couldn't leave the neighborhood, but because I live in a high-rise building, and because they are targeting towers, we thought they might target our tower as well. So we spent the night with our neighbors, whom we don't know, in fact. They were so kind to receive us. But then the following day, of course, in the morning, I went and I checked my flat. The whole neighborhood was flattened to the ground. And when I checked my tower, my flat, every single door was broken, every single window, and it is uninhabitable, and it needs to be renovated, which will take a very long time and so much money. I don't know how I will be able to afford that. And then yesterday we were told to leave the place where my brother lives in the northern part of Gaza and head towards the south. And it was very dangerous, very risky, but I took my family, my brother's family, and we came to Rafah on the southern border with Egypt, and we are staying with my sister and her two sons, who are themselves married, and they have two families. And we have been here for about 40 hours now. As for how I maintain contact with the outside world, comrades and friends keep either calling me on my mobiles, even though we have very weak lines. And yesterday at 12 o'clock, at 12 a.m., the Minister of Telecommunication in Israel decided to cut off internet supply to Gaza. For the time being, I'm using a very, very weak internet connection. It's a data, and we don't have a strong internet, or rather the regular internet connection.
All right, so there you have it. Sentiment there from a South African Palestinian currently living in Gaza, painting what is really a horrendous picture about what it's like to survive in that environment. And Dr. Firoz, I thought it was worth sharing that sentiment with our viewers because it's important for us to try to get a sense of how passing information might be like around this particular conflict, especially if you're inside Gaza. And it's been a major issue, right? Coverage of this particular issue, and whether or not we're now seeing a situation where there's propaganda seeping into what is actually taking place on the ground. What do you reckon is the best way to circumvent through all of that? Because let's face it, there are strongly held views on both sides of this conflict.
You know, I wonder about that. Can one really be neutral in this particular situation? We have found that what is being committed at the moment, as described by Professor Eid, is a massacre. There are atrocities that are bordering, and in fact, under many circumstances, it is a genocide that is taking place. And it is a deliberate attempt by the Zionists in order to cut off all communication with Gaza so they can do it out of the glare of the media world. Fortunately for social media, that we get glimpses of what is really going on there. But it is a horrific crime that is being committed, and it is committed against the Palestinian people right from before 1948. There are hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of massacres and atrocities, some on a smaller scale. But this is being done where 2.3 million people have been starved for almost 17 years. Now they say no food, no fuel, no water. What kind of people are these? Such barbarity that is being inflicted on the Palestinian people that have been starved for 17 years. And that is why the world really needs to take up some issues. The governments of the West are really have articulated their support for Israel. The people are objecting to that. And South Africa really mustn't wait for the labor unions or civil society to tell them what to do. We know what it is like. And our stalwarts have told us that what is going on in Gaza is far worse than what we ourselves have experienced. Our townships were never bombed by F-15 and F-16 and F-35s. This is a country that is the fifth strongest army in the world, in possession of over 200 nuclear bombs. But what possesses such barbarity for those who claim to be victims and have been victims of the Holocaust and are inflicting such a Holocaust on the Palestinian? It beggars the mind.
Right. You know, there are currently 2 rallies being held in Johannesburg this Sunday afternoon, and both rallies I support are considered interest groups that are trying to highlight the plight of both Israelis and Palestinians respectively. What I find is a common thread, though, from both gatherings is this call for peace. No matter how we got here, I wonder who you reckon it is throughout the length and breadth of this country who is best placed to mediate through that peace.
You know, they've been talking about peace from 1948. What the Zionists want is passivity, that the people must surrender themselves. You have a Zionist boot on the necks of the Palestinians for such a long time. We need to find out, in order to get peace in that region, what is the cause of the problem. And the cause of the problem is a Zionist apartheid. Zionism is a racist, settler, colonialist, white supremacist ideology. And until and unless we get rid of and dismantle the Zionist ideology, just like we did in South Africa, the problem wasn't the white people. Like in Israel, the problem isn't the Jewish people. We've made it clear. It is not even Judaism. Zionism is a total different political animal. And this is what we need to understand, that until and unless the Zionist apartheid entity is dismantled, there can never be peace, whoever the broker is. We need to get rid of the occupation, and that is the fundamental problem.
Dr. Firoz Osman, thanks very much indeed for your insights. Really do appreciate your time on Newsfeed PM this afternoon. Dr. Firoz is with Media Review Network. We also got your sentiments there from Professor Haidar Eid, who is a South African Palestinian currently living in Gaza. As I mentioned, very strongly held views here about how we arrived at this point. Hopefully, we're all able to get out of it, given what's at stake.